Hello, everyone. Welcome to the short talk on iOS offline tracking and wiping. My name is Mitch Kajzer. I'm an associate professor at the University of Notre Dame, where I work out of the Center for Research Computing. In addition, for the last 33 years, I've been an active law enforcement officer. I'm also the executive director of the St. Joseph County Cyber Crimes Unit, which is a Metro Digital Forensics unit up here in northern Indiana. In this short talk today, I'm going to talk about offline tracking, the implications of it, what can be done with it, can phones be wiped with it. I'll talk a little bit about how I tested this, the procedures and the results, and then from what I learned from that, some best practices that can be implemented to prevent phones from inadvertently being wiped. So first, what is offline tracking? With certain powered down iOS devices, even though they're completely shut off, they may still be trackable. Powered off doesn't really mean powered off. When you power down a compatible device for the first time, it displays this message that iPhone remains findable after power off. This is made possible by this chip, the U1 chip that Apple uses in these devices. Apple describes it that's used for spatial awareness, and it allows the iPhone to understand its precise location relative to other devices around it that also have that U1 chip. In their advertising for it, they say in there that you can point your iPhone towards someone else's, and AirDrop will prioritize that device and bring it up to the top of your list in order to AirDrop. And they say that's just the beginning, because it truly is just the beginning of the capabilities of what this chip can do. So what's a compatible device? Apple started putting this chip in with the iPhone 11, so anything newer than an iPhone 11. Apple Watch 6 has the chip, and Apple AirTags are also using the chip. This chip uses what's called ultra-wideband communications. It's a short-range wireless protocol that uses very little energy. That's why AirTags, battery will keep them charged for a year. But essentially what this chip is doing, it's using high-frequency, low-pulse radio signals, and it's constantly sending out these radio signals and looking for replies from any U1 chips near it. And to determine where that reply is coming from, it calculates what's kind of known as this time of flight. So essentially when the initiating device sends out this pulse, it's picked up by another device. That device then replies and sends it back to the initiator. So this loop is calculated, and based on the time of flight, how long it takes to do that, the chip can calculate how far away it is and very precisely what is its actual location. This gives us very precise spatial and directional data from the chip. The devices know what other chips are around it and how far away they may be. In the advertisement, they say it's got an accuracy of less than 4 inches, and line of sight range is about 600 feet. And Apple describes this as, thinking of it as GPS at the scale of your living room. So offline tracking, if a device is shut off and is not powered, you look at these two shots here. So this one here that shows the lit up screen of an iPhone, that is an online device. If a device is showing up completely black, that is an offline device. This is essentially using crowdsourcing, using this ultra wideband technology. In order to track an offline device, you have to do one of two things. You have to either be logged into the online iCloud account associated with that device, or using another iOS device that's configured with the same iCloud account. So you have to be logged into the same account as the device that you're tracking. The reason for this is because it uses asymmetric encryption, essentially a public key, private key encryption. So in order to have access to the private key, which we'll see how it's used in decryption, you have to be logged into the same account. So the way this works, so an offline device, even though the device is powered down, it is still continuously sending out these pulses using ultra wideband. In these pulses, it includes the public key of the offline device. Around the area, any devices that are equipped with the chip, they will pick up these signals. So they pick up this pulse from the offline device that includes the public key of the offline device. When a device picks this up, it records the GPS location of where it is, encrypts that location using the public key that it received from the offline device, and then that encrypted location information is uploaded to Apple. Along with that upload, the device in the area that picked up the signal calculates a hash of the public key and uploads that with the location data. So Apple isn't getting the actual encryption key, they're getting a hash of the public key. So when you track a device, when you click on Find My, what happens is the hash of the public key is sent to Apple. So this is the public key from the device that you're tracking. Apple searches their database, looks for any matches for that hash. When a match is found, it takes that encrypted data, sends it back to the device tracking it. Using Find My, that device then decrypts it using the private key. So, and then it knows where the location of the offline device is. One question that we immediately thought of, okay, is what can Apple see and what records do they keep? Essentially nothing. Since they don't know the private key, all they have is they don't have it because it's on the device. They cannot decrypt the data, and all they have is a hash of the public key. So there's no historical location information kept up at Apple. So some of the implications and questions that this brings up. First, related to evidence handling. We had an incident a while ago where an officer picked up a phone out of our unit that we had done a examination on. It was a Friday afternoon, and instead of taking the phone and putting it back into evidence, she left it in the trunk of her car and went home, and just thinking she'll turn it in on Monday. Over the weekend, she got a text from the suspect asking, "Why do you have my phone at your house?" And she replied, "Well, I don't." And he replied to her, "Yes, you do. You're at," and then he gave her her address and a screenshot of where the device was. He tracked that device offline in order to do that. Second thing brings up is remote wiping. When a wipe command is issued to a phone, it just uses crypto shredding technology and erases the encryption key. So all the data is left encrypted and inaccessible. So it brought up the question, can a phone be remotely wiped using this ultra wideband? So we did some testing. I had an Apple iPhone 11 that was equipped with the chip. I had an iPad that was a friendly device that's logged in the same iCloud account. And I had several unknown devices. I refer to them as snitch devices. These are the devices that are picking up the signals from the iPhone 11 and sending the information to Apple. One thing we learned is that radio terminology is very important. So there's a difference between radios being disabled and turned off. So on an iPhone, if you swipe down and access the control center and shut off Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, it disables it. It's not truly turning it off, and it typically disables it for about 24 hours. This is different than if you go into the settings and in the settings turn it off. There it stays off until it's turned on again by the user. So this first scenario I had a phone, left all the radios turned on, powered it down at Notre Dame, drove to Granger, Indiana with several friendly devices and snitch devices in my car. When I got there, I tracked the iPhone and it showed precisely where I was located, even though it was turned off. I then did a second scenario. Again, I left all the radios turned on, powered the phone down, put it in the car, and went for a drive with the phone. During this drive, there was an initial delay. So the blue dot is where I am, and there's the offline phone. there was about a 1 minute delay between my location and where the phone actually was. After about 1 minute, this ultra wideband locked onto the offline device, and it stayed precisely with where I was at. So here's a video showing that once it locked on, it stayed right with me, showing the locations. We can see the offline device moving there. So tracking offline devices that are powered off, what we found is that if the device is shut off with all radios left on, it's trackable. If it's in airplane mode, it's trackable. If Bluetooth is disabled from the control center, it's still trackable. But turning off Bluetooth in settings or turning off all the radios, it was no longer trackable. So that's why this is important distinction here. The phone was still tracked if you just disable it in the control center, not tracked if you shut it off in the settings. So now, how does this impact wiping phones? So when you wipe a phone, you can log into iCloud account, say erase the phone. It prompts you for authentication and then gives you a message that the wipe is started. First thing I did was test that this was working. I had a powered on phone. I issued it the wipe command. It wiped the phone. I then took the same phone, restored it, left all the radios on, and shut the phone off. When I logged in to look at it, it showed a status of being offline, so it's black, and erase pending on the phone. So with the wipe command pending, I then turned the phone back on. And a reminder that when I shut it off, all the radios were turned off. When I turned it back on, the phone was not wiped. And what we determined with wiping, that when the phone is powered off and you turn it back on, if all the radios were left on, that phone is going to wipe. If it was in airplane mode, Bluetooth disabled, Bluetooth turned off, or all radios off, the phone did not wipe. And then here's a summary of being tracked and being wiped. The only time the phone was both tracked and wiped is if all radios were active. It was still tracked in airplane mode and Bluetooth being disabled, but the only time it was wiped is if all radios were active. So this means that the device is going to remain trackable unless Bluetooth is turned off from the settings. Just disabling it from the control center only disables classic Bluetooth and not ultra wideband. So if a wipe command is sent to the device, it will not wipe unless it successfully connects to the cellular or Wi-Fi network. So the wipe command is not executed on the device via ultra wideband. Is the wipe command delivered to the device? Because we know it can receive data through ultra wideband. Right now, we don't know that. We're still researching that. So best practices that we implemented here, that if we have a passcode for a phone, we go into settings and turn off all radios. That's the best situation, as the phone will not be trackable and cannot be sent the wipe command or cannot receive the wipe command. If we don't have the passcode, we place the phone into airplane mode. The phone is still going to be trackable, but it won't accept the wipe command. If we can't get a phone in airplane mode, then we put it in the Faraday bag or Faraday box. We use GrayKey for file system acquisitions, and when GrayKey accesses the phone, it does turn off all the radios. So currently, devices will not execute the wipe command via ultra wideband. But what if that changes? We know Apple is always changing things. We implemented a policy here that if we don't have the passcode to the phone and we cannot get the phone, get into the settings and shut off all of the radios, we place the phone into a Faraday box along with a GrayKey that we have in the Faraday box to completely protect the phone. Once GrayKey accesses it, it will then shut off all the radios. Doing it this way protects that if Apple does change and the phone is wipeable via ultra wide Bluetooth, that it will no longer get wiped. And we do know that suspects are doing stuff like this. We had a situation just a couple of weeks ago where a suspect showed up at our building, a homicide suspect whose phone was seized, and he showed up downstairs at the front desk saying that he was able to track his mom's phone to this building and was coming to see if he could get it back. So we know suspects are doing it. We know they're logging in there. So we've got the procedures in place to try to protect it as much as possible. All right. Thank you very much. Hope you found this interesting. Questions, since I am unavailable to answer live questions, they will collect questions and I will then respond to those questions via email or some other methods. Thank you very much.